Mercedes shows up for the weekend. Fernando Alonso kind of doesn't. And Lando Norris breaks hearts across the world. This is Into the Chicane Formula One podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Channing Apodaca, joined via the internet, the good old internet, with my co-host Brandon Wood. How you doing, bud?
Doing good. A little tired, but I'm here for it. It was a fun race, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, we're doing this one via FaceTime. Somebody couldn't keep it in his pants and had to go and have himself a baby, and now he's got to dedicate all his weekdays to that. So we're doing this one. Little horn dog, you.
Yeah, well, eventually when he can sleep through the night, it'll make things a little easier.
And we can get our sleepovers back, and we can just wake up and do our podcast like we used
Exactly.
to.
Although it was thanks to him that I was able to catch the race live.
Oh, really? You woke up early for it?
Yeah, because he woke up at like 5:45 and the race started at 6. So I was like, oh, well, I might as well stay up and watch it. So
yeah,
I watched live.
Yeah, I watched. It was one of the first ones of the season. I've only woken up and watched a couple of them live, and Barcelona was one of them. I had myself a lovely little Sunday. I went to bed early Saturday night, got at least 7 or 8 hours, which is good for me. Woke up at probably around the same time you did, which is surprising because I don't think you were texting me.
No, I figured you were asleep, so I didn't even want to.
I thought the same thing of you. I was like, he was probably up till 2 or 3 with Ollie, and I figured you didn't wake up for it. But yeah, I was watching, and then
because that's what happened to Monaco. Is he was up until he didn't go down until like about the time the race was starting. So I was like, I'll just watch it later. I need my sleep, so
get it while you can. But yeah, I woke up, watched the race, and then went and had a nice little Sunday. Got some Thai food, a little Thai market down the street in North Hollywood. It was nice.
Oh yeah,
it was really nice.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, we had Oliver over with you guys watching the race, Monaco, and he was pretty invested as the race went on. He had his eyes locked on the screen. Was he as intrigued watching Spain as he was with Monaco?
We tried to limit his amount of screen time, so I didn't really give him a chance to watch this time. But
really,
he's definitely into it.
Good.
I think the noises are very fun to him, and all of the moving objects are very interesting. So
hopefully by the time he's old enough to actually get in a car or a kart, maybe they'll have brought back V8s or V10s by then. Gotten away with DRS, gone back to KERS or push to pass, or maybe it'll just be Formula E by the time he's old enough. And
it's going to be, I don't know. That's something I think about often is like
me too,
where the cars are going to go. And I feel like just because of the existence of Formula E, they're going to retain some form of combustion engine. They're just going to be like super.
They have to. If anything, it's going to be like a heavy battery operated car. And then have kind of like a shift. Maybe like they'll hit a button and it'll give them more gas, and that'll be like what their ERS is now.
Yeah, like some little turbo motor starts going.
Where it just kind of drains the gas as opposed to draining the battery. Something.
Yeah.
Who knows? That is the way we're headed. Anyways, let's get into this race. What you got on the sketch for us today?
Well, depends where you want to start. So.
Not a whole lot of action in practices, right?
Not a whole lot. There was a couple moments where, because this was the first weekend where we're really going to get to see Ferrari unveiled some new upgrades this weekend. So they had some new side pods.
Yeah, went good for one. Didn't go so great for the other. Yeah,
so curiously, they were another side pod design that's reminiscent of the Red Bull, which... as to be expected.
Yep.
And then the Mercedes.
Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Hey, do what you got to do to get ahead.
Yep.
So last week in Monaco, we saw Mercedes' new floor and their side pods that, we got a full view of when they had the car on the crane. Mm-hmm. But that track, of course, was not, super great opportunity for them to display the full potential of the car. So this weekend, everyone was keenly watching as to what was going to be the situation. And in practice, it didn't look that great. both the Mercedes and the Ferrari seemed to be struggling with their setup.
Yeah, but it was also kind of, like you said, the only other times that they had driven that setup was in Monaco, and you're not going to get anything out of the car. This was the first time both of those setups have been on a traditional, actual, real racetrack. So drivers had to get used to it.
Yeah, and the Mercedes specifically, they're still figuring out a couple things, and so they had Mick, our good friend Mick Schumacher,
good friend of the show,
back at their facility on Friday night in the sim, doing a bunch of work to help them with the setup, and it turns out that it actually kind of helped them for qualifying. So we got to see Mercedes kind of turn it around a little bit. Qualifying was interesting for Mercedes. We saw I don't know if it was I guess it must have been a communication error. We ended up seeing George and Lewis
got
collide.
into it a little bit. Did they hit, or was it just that George had kind of like pulled out in front of Lewis?
So George was trying to get around Sainz, who was going a little slow. He was off the racing line, but George had to go around him, and he wasn't paying attention to Lewis coming up behind him, and apparently nobody from the team let him know what was going on, and he just turned out right in front of Lewis, and Lewis got some damage to his right front wing. So
they did touch. Wow.
So reminiscent of 2016, very
Nico.
similar spot to Lewis and Nico's whole situation, but it wasn't quite as consequential, You know
what the move actually reminded me of was Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso at Coda last year. Like, just the way that the move looked, the way that Lance kind of pulled in front of him, kind of looked like the way that George pulled in front of Lewis.
Yeah, just a real late move. Obviously wasn't looking in his mirrors, or maybe just their visibility is a little bit limited. Qualifying altogether, I think was kind of interesting. We saw like Gasly
had a
up
great
there
qualifying.
Yeah, he had a great run. Alpine's again looking very strong in qualifying.
Yeah, Pierre, where did he end up qualifying before he got his penalties? P4?
Yes. Yeah.
Because then they gave him 2 3-place grid penalties for impeding, which set him all the way back to P10. Womp, 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 because he's on my fantasy team this year.
Yeah, and one of those was because he got a warning from the team and didn't get out of the way in time. And another one, his team failed to kind of let him know what was going on. So it was one of those was on him, one of those was on the team. So
brutal for him though, dude, because I think that was his best quality result of the year, and probably the best that he's had in a few years. And he probably would have held on to that position for at least the better part of the race. And fuck, man.
Yeah.
He got screwed with penalties. Yuki got screwed with penalties over the weekend. Charles. Let's talk about Charles out of that quali.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I'm so confused with his situation, it's because he was claiming that something wasn't right with the car. Something was off.
The whole left side, he wasn't able to make left turns, and he was getting like massive amounts of understeer, which was the complete opposite of Carlos, because Carlos qualifies P2. He has a great showing in qualifying.
Yeah.
And
well, part of the thing was that I think Charles was the only one rocking the new upgrades. Like, I think they only had enough parts for one of the cars. So they
didn't upgrade Carlos's car.
Yeah, from what I understand, he did not have the same upgrades.
God damn, dude. Anything that can go wrong will always go wrong at Ferrari.
It seems like it, right?
Dude, they are... I don't know if I've ever said this before on this show. Remember that movie Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence?
Yeah.
Remember that they had a character on the baseball team named Can't Get Right because he always fucked everything up? Dude, that is Ferrari. They will just find a way to mess something up so bad. They could have brought their car from last year, exact same design, not changed a thing, and been better off this year than where they're at now.
100%. They've been just chasing their tails. After qualifying, Charles was like, I don't know what's wrong. It's hard. I can't say. The team doesn't know what's wrong, so they ended up changing.
There was a great shot of him in his changing room that you sent me, of him just staring at a wall. And some photographer got a picture of him through a window, and he just looked absolutely lost and dazed.
Yeah.
As this, this season and his young career slipping from his fingers.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that it could have been something very small, like a crack in his chassis somewhere, that they were hairline fracture where they can't even. It's really hard for them to visually see it. Something they ended up changing like his whole rear end suspension and like a transmission, I think.
Oh wow!
So he
takes that hit against him for the season.
Yeah, so he ended up starting back in 19th for the race.
Where did he? Well, I mean, that's where he qualified, right? Was P19?
Yeah.
That's where he. I mean, he's out in Q1, second to last. He only beat, who was it? Logan Sargent or somebody?
Yeah.
Man, that is brutal. That was the shocker of qualifying for me. That and our beautiful, beautiful golden brown boy Lando Norris putting it all the way up into P3. Both McLarens looked really fucking good in qualifying. It's like they did some kind of an upgrade to their car, and they just looked like they dialed it in for Spain.
Yeah, they had a really great pace in qualifying. Piastri, I think, got 10th, qualified 10th. I think that's a pretty good qualifying for him.
That's a solid qualifying for Piastri.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like some of the other teams, they just weren't able to maintain the same pace in the race whatsoever. So,
well, race-wise, let's jump into it. So Max takes pole, followed by Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, and Lance Stroll for the first time in the season out-qualifies his teammate. Lance Stroll qualified P5 or P6, one of those.
Six, yeah. So I think it's Q1, Alonso went off the track a little bit and sustained some damage to the bottom of his floor. So he kind of got set back through the rest of qualifying.
Which it was funny because he was faster than Lance in every single portion of the track going into the weekend. And then everybody was putting together all these fucking conspiracy theories about number 33 and this and that. And then Alonso has the worst race of his season so far, just about.
Yeah, it literally was. It was the only time he's been outside of the top 5.
Yeah. So Lando qualifies P3, and it was fucking glorious. And then lap 1, turn 2, maybe 3.
I feel like it was turn 1, wasn't it?
No, turn 1 is the right-hander. This was a left-hander. So
okay.
I think it's turn 2. It's like kind of through a little bit of a chicane. He gets passed by Lewis, and this is Lando's own fault. Lewis gets a great start, as Lewis tends to do. I think Lando might have been gripping the steering wheel a little bit too tight because his jump off the line wasn't great. Max and Carlos got an identical launch. It was something like 0.27 of a second equal, and Lewis jumps ahead of Lando, and he really doesn't defend. He gives him way too much space along the inside of that turn, doesn't fend it off. He's kind of keeping pace with the Ferrari and the Red Bull ahead of him, but gives Lewis all the space he needs in the world. Lewis overtakes him, and then Lando kind of panics and tries to take the place back into turn 2, sticks a nose up the inside. It's 100% Lewis's turn. More than half a body length over the line of that turn, and Lando gets a big chunk of his nose wing taken off. The whole front end plate is gone.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was Sainz and Hamilton, right? And they both checked up going into the corner, and Lando just wasn't anticipating that, I don't think,
Yeah, I mean, maybe Lewis had to brake a little bit to keep away from Carlos, but yeah, Lando just bulldogged his way into there, and it was stupid. He shouldn't have done that. He should have backed off and just ceded the place to Lewis. He'd already lost it, and then but in doing so, he sticks his nose up the inside completely. His race was over right there. The pack was so tight, he puts himself 20 plus seconds behind everybody to start that race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having to pit on the first lap is never a good thing for your race.
Yeah, especially at a race like that where it's going to be more than a 2-stopper anyways, which I think for Lando it ended up being like a 3 or a 4-stopper.
Yeah.
Which is the story of his season. You can't just run long on hards. You can't go, what's that race? 65 laps? 66? Spain, I think it is.
It was 66, I think.
Yeah, you can't go 65 on hards there. It's just not going to happen. One
thing I wasn't sure of, did you catch how many cars George passed off track?
I was counting it earlier. That really pissed me off. Because where did
That
George
was
start?
weird, right?
He
Like
started P12 or P11.
He started P12. I don't know where he was going into that like third turn or
I was
whatever
just
it was.
watching the race in 30 a couple minutes ago, and I didn't get an exact count, but I mean, he gets a good start. He launches, he gains positions, but then he gains like 2 or 3 more because he goes into the runoff, and he doesn't even try and keep it on track.
Not at all.
He gets pushed a little bit wide. Nobody gets a penalty for pushing him wide. Let's mention that. Nobody gets a penalty. He doesn't get a penalty for going off track and gaining position, but he passes up Piastri, and then he passed up another. It was either an Alfa Tauri or an Alfa Romeo. I forget who. Anna McLaren of Oscar Piastri. Nothing. He's just given the places. And not only does he overtake them and gain those positions, but he gets a better exit into the next corner because he's able to go wider into that runoff, and he's able to straighten out his wheel and get a much better exit. So he has trajectory coming out of that corner that helps him, a lap or two in the future because he closes that gap so much sooner than he ever would have. That made his race right there. He had a good race to begin with. Like, give him all the credit in the world. He P3, but also, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, I felt like he had to give at least a couple of those places back. I need to go back and rewatch it just to kind of get a better idea. But for my initial reaction was like, how did he get away with that?
How is that not? I mean, did they even review it? I don't remember if they ever even gave it a look. He goes into the runoff, which is tarmac. He gets a clean piece of racing track, basically.
Yeah.
To readjust, he comes out on the shorter end. He misses a whole turn, goes around and just cuts through. It was like Fernando Alonso in Russia. Remember when he went off track and just completely, and they were like, I guess that nobody called him out on it, and it was planned. I don't think this was planned for George because he kind of flinches and then goes left, but still.
Yeah. I mean, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? So
I guess so. Not if you're Gunther Steiner, because he got in trouble this weekend for saying some bad things about the FIA. But clearly, bad things need to be said about them because shit like this is going on.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up earlier, and the thing, because what he said was that he finds it odd that Formula One is the only major sport, like not even just motorsport, but sports in general, that doesn't have professional stewards. Like everyone that's a steward and is making these calls is apparently a volunteer
at every single track.
At every single track, every single race.
They're just
like all these people making these decisions are volunteer positions, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
So
I knew the track marshals were volunteers, maybe even like the spotters, but the stewards, I had no clue.
That's what they're claiming. So it makes sense to me. Like every other sport has like official like referees that are like paid,
there's a commission,
paid position, and they go and travel around and they rotate out, and it may only make sense to have that. I mean,
you ever seen the NHL's War Room in Toronto?
Yeah,
at the hockey headquarters, like that's how it should be. I mean, you're talking about a lot more money than the NHL has, and the FIA can't put that together. Bonkers. I
mean, they can. It's weird to have that as a setup when they can pay salary for 6 to 10 people.
You know what it sounds like? That sounds like some old world shit. Like it's something they've been doing since 1950. That it's a volunteer position that goes to the town, this and that, the mayor, these great guys that in the local community, and it's some old tradition that the FIA doesn't want to give up, and that's the most Formula One shit I've ever heard of in my life.
Yeah, I want to look into it some more. It's probably like a group of people that always do it, but they're volunteers, and that's what it is. They don't have like official people that's like the only thing they do for a living. So
yeah, wild.
So we saw Max get challenged by Carlos going to turn 1, which I was like all for it. I wanted Carlos just to like hold it out and just kind of just take it from him. Even if he couldn't hold it for long, I wanted him just to be out front leading some laps at his home race.
Even if he wasn't able to hold on to P1, just to take the position from Max.
Yeah, exactly.
Been
Who
nice.
cares? Like,
slow him down a little bit, back the pack up at least.
yeah.
He had him. He was neck and neck with him for a quick second going into turn 1.
I mean, it was his corner. Like, based off of all the rules, based off of Yuki's penalty that he got.
Yeah.
Carlos could have stuck it out, and if anything happened, he would have had the right of way to that corner.
Yeah.
So
he got a great launch, and the Ferrari handled really well into that one. To what could
but
have
unfortunately
been.
From there, he just kind of tumbled backwards.
Yeah, I mean, once Max cleared him, he was clear for the rest of the way. He never gave up P1. He was in the lead of the race the entire time, even when he pitted. I think he only did a one stopper, and he was 29 seconds clear of Checo at the time when he did his pit, and so
led
the whole way.
It's Carlos, as we expected, he kind of fell back a little bit in the race, but I was kind of hoping that he could have at least been able to hold out for a podium spot. I don't know. I mean, I guess what are we to take away from these new Ferrari upgrades? Like, obviously it wasn't enough, right? So
yeah, well, I mean, they're going to have to do some real testing in the sim, and then see if they even want to hold on to this package. If everything that happened to Chuck's car continues to happen, let's say it's not just like a small error. Let's say it's not a hairline fracture in the frame or whatever, and that there's actually an issue with this new package. They're not going to want to keep that. Just go back to what you had.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that there's a huge issue with tire degradation, right? So like, common thing we saw last year is only maintained this year, and that like they can have really great qualifying speed, but they get to a race setting and it doesn't last very long. They start burning through tires. You see Carlos struggling pretty early on. And that's just like, that's an inherent quality to their current concept, right? So there's something about the way the car loads going into turns, and
it's got to be the big side pods, because cars that have a similar design to that are having the exact same issues. Look at the Haas cars this weekend. Both their drivers were kind of kicking ass. There was a second. I mean, Nico qualified pretty high up there, and there was a good portion of the race where Nico had fastest lap. This was around like lap 22 also, so it wasn't some freak incident where he got it at the back of the pack coming into lap 2. It was in the middle of the race, and he was putting in the fastest lap times. But then when it comes to actual race pace, they can't do shit. I don't even know how many overtakes they had between the two of those guys. It had to have been up to like upwards of 6 or 7, if not up into 10, between Kevin and Nico. But as soon as they get around somebody within a lap, half a lap, 2 laps, that same car is just passing them right back, not even always in a DRS zone. So they can't actually race. The guys can drive it. They can get themselves in the window and then make the move, but that car just doesn't hold on. It's got superior deg compared to everybody else,
Yeah, and I think that's because they have a very similar concept to the Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's not even just about the side pod, right? Because it's also the floor, and it's also
the power unit too,
the suspension stuff. Because the side pod design, like, they're all kind of following in line with the Red Bull, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Red Bull has the most efficiency with their tires of all the car concepts, right?
Yeah.
So it's a combination of like having that wider side pod design with the right floor and the right suspension, right? So that you're not loading the tires too much and causing a lot of
I wonder what
degradation.
The weight differential between those two cars specifically between the Ferrari and the Red Bull are. The Red Bull's got to be significantly lighter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're probably pretty similar, right? Just because of the regulations and where they're able to, how heavy they're able to be and whatnot. But I think it really is, it comes down to like their suspension and how the floor fits in with all of that, because the Mercedes, right, has a very similar quality to the Red Bull now, with being very light on their tires, not having to worry about falling off throughout the race, which is what we saw a great example of that this weekend, right? Like, maybe not the fastest car in qualifying, but they've been consistently like up there in all the races, right? Maintaining top 10 finishes for both drivers, that's huge. So
yeah. And then, as a result of that, they took over P2 in the standings.
Yeah.
And it surprisingly,
that was going to bring me to my next thing was what happened.
It was not Lance's fault.
No. What happened to Alonso though?
I don't know.
In the race, he wasn't able to get ahead at all. There's one moment where he was like telling Lance, "Don't worry, I'm not going to overtake you. I'm just going to fall in behind, and we're going to just take this home."
The mind of Fernando Alonso is one of the most confusing places on the planet. I don't know what goes through that guy's head, or if he's just such like a true troll, which I mean he is. But it looked like he was kind of sandbagging a little bit, and the commentary guys were like, he might just be saving his tires and taking it a little bit easy, because there was a moment in the race where he completely moved out of the way and let George just fly right by him. No fight. Just let him right through. And this is his home race, where everybody, himself included, was saying that he's going to get number 33. He's going to get number 33. He looked the best in practice, outside of Max, all that shit, and was just nowhere in the race. Didn't even put up a fight.
Do you think that might have just been like a setup thing? Like they just didn't quite get the right setup for this week? Or is it that
that wouldn't make any sense.
Mercedes were that much stronger that they weren't able to?
I think Mercedes was definitely stronger. If you can chalk it up to anything, it's got to be the damage to Fernando's floorboard. Maybe, I don't know, but to have.
But you would think that they would fix that in between qualifying and the race, right?
You would think. Who knows? I mean,
because I don't think that falls under like the Parc Ferme like conditions, right? Like they can change. I don't know.
They can change floorboard, I think, if it's got actual damage to it. But yeah, dude, he just like didn't seem to have it, and he didn't really seem to put forth any effort into, fighting for it, especially when you have Lance Stroll just like completely dogging him the entire race.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, it's his home race, and you want to see him just go out there and dominate.
At the same time, like, who's to say he's not allowed to have an off weekend? He's not a robot. He's not Max.
Yeah.
He's 42 years old.
Hey, hopefully,
it was just like a weird place for him to have that. You know what I mean? You'd think that with the national anthem and him arm in arm with Carlos, like he was gonna put forward a real fucking valiant effort, and it just looked weird. It just looked weird that he didn't have the oomph.
Yeah, nothing the same way that Carlos did, right? Like Carlos definitely was vibing with the home field advantage. You can see with this qualifying performance, like how he was really, taking a step ahead this weekend.
Yeah, 100%.
So is this, can we confirm that the zero side pod concept is officially dead?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think Mercedes or anyone goes back to that anytime soon.
Yeah. So next race in Canada, we're going to see some upgrades from the Aston Martin. And Alonso has claimed multiple times that they're going to crush everybody. So with these new upgrades. So I'd think love to see it. We're really, now we can say the battle for second place in constructors is officially,
on.
Officially heated up. We saw it coming with these Mercedes upgrades, but I think, if in Canada, if Aston Martin doesn't have a similar situation where they're just not quite up to par, like I feel like there's a good chance the Mercedes. Oh no, I don't know. Because Mercedes did do really well here last year, so I don't think we can get too excited about where they're at.
Either way, the excitement of having this two-team battle for second place is really exciting. We so desperately need this right now because the way that Red Bull has run away with it, it's making the season get boring because we don't have a championship battle. We can't just have all the ducks line up in a row where they're expected to be, and then just call that a season. Because I'll be honest, I'm starting to lose a little bit of interest. It's getting a little boring even for me. And so to have a second place battle and, potentially a second place in the driver's standings battle between, Checo, the 2 Mercedes, and the 2 Aston Martins. We'll throw Lance in there too. Like, let's say that their package is so good going forward that can happen. We need that so fucking bad. It sucks that it's a battle for second place and not a battle for championship in points or on the track, but still, it's something that we need badly.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Hell yeah. And, we'll have 2 back-to-back home races for the Aston Martin team. That's fun. Lance Stroll
let's see if gives Lance
for the
a little bump. He needs it.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Yuki's penalty? He got a penalty. I don't know what lap it was on, but he was in a battle with Joe.
Like 64.
Joe Guan Yu. He was in 9th time, and Joe went to go pass him around the outside of turn 1. Yuki kind of squeezed him off the track a little bit, and he ended up getting a 5-second penalty for forcing him off the track.
It was the exact same place where George Russell went off and gained positions. No penalty for him, no penalty for the person that pushed him off the track. Why does Yuki get it? And with 2 laps remaining for 10th, or battling for 9th place, and really you're going to give the man a 5-second penalty? I don't think they touched. I think it was his corner. Even the commentary box said the same thing. I think that's a blown call by some fucking volunteer up in a press box somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't like it. It's I understand why he got it, but at the same time, it sucks to see such a harsh penalty for something that wasn't really Joe had room. He just got closed off a little bit towards the exit of the turn, and Yuki kind of claimed that Joe kind of exaggerated his turn off just to kind of draw a penalty, almost kind of NBA style, right? Where
like he fouls out, and so he
kind of did an extra flinch just to kind of get a little bit out of it. But
interesting. Well, smart move by Joe.
That's hard to say, but I think, yeah, definitely, my heart still kind of hurts over that one. But
yeah, that sucks. I mean, we're you more than I, but we're Yuki stans over here. We love the little guy. So shitty for him. I mean, motherfucker needs to catch a break so bad, and he just can't. But yeah, bad call, terrible call.
Yeah,
and to make it, they made it so quickly. Like I said, I think it was lap 63 or 64, late in the race, and before the race had even ended, they had made the call to give him a 5-second penalty. So barely any review. No correspondence between the 2 teams. Nothing. Where's Franz Tost getting on the radio the way that Christian and Toto do?
Yeah, I'm curious how hard they fought against that one.
Yeah, who knows, man?
I kind of feel like it didn't do too much, but it is what it is. Hopefully next weekend Yuki can make it happen.
It'd be nice if Formula One, kind of responded the way other sports do, where you give me a, it's called, like in hockey, they call it a gimme penalty. If the ref gives you a bad call, they'll give you one back. Maybe they'll penalize Zhou Guanyu in the next race if him and Yuki get anywhere near each other. That'd be nice. Give Yuki that 5 seconds back.
I love that.
Let's get into our predictions recap.
Cool. So
I know I got 1 point this week.
No, you got
at least.
So your 3 predictions were 1, Hamilton on the podium.
Got it.
Point right there. Mercedes would assume second place in the Constructors' Cup, which
that's the one I knew I had.
That's your second point, right? And then your third one was George Contact. I'm willing to give you the point for the qualifying contact because that's part of the weekend. I'll give you full 3-pointer for this one.
I'm gonna be a man about this, and I'm going to decline the point.
Okay.
Because in my heart of hearts, I envisioned the contact in the race. I never thought it would be a part of qualifying. I meant it without saying that it would be in the race. So I'm going to be honest. I'm going to, Scout's honor on that one and say that unless somebody can show us a clip of him on turn 1 making contact with somebody, I'm going to have to deny that point. I don't want it. If I'm going to win this thing, I'm going to win it the right way.
Fair and square. So I had Carlos on the podium. It would have been beautiful, but just missed out on that one.
Yeah.
I had Lewis ahead of George, so I'll get a point for that.
Very nice.
And then I had Piastri top 10. He qualified top 10, but wasn't able to hold it out. So
no points for OP.
So I got one this weekend, and then over the break for the next pod, I will tally up all the points for the season, see where we're at.
Beautiful. So then we'll go ahead.
Yeah, I was just say next we could do fantasy if you want.
Fantasy updates. So winner of the week is a tie between Strolling with My Homies and Susie Wolf Stan Account. Both got 288 points each. You and I had the exact same team. We got second place on the week, tied for second with 286 points, so just barely missed out. And as it stands right now, not a whole lot of movement. We actually completely stayed pat, the league as a whole. So I still lead you by 9 points. Myself, Incident, you're in second.
Let's go.
Porpoise Powertrain, second place. Susie Wolf Stan Account in third. And fourth is Strolling with My Homies, followed by J Money. Church of Czech Hose in sixth. Let's Go Full Throttle in seventh. Really bad season for Cole, huh? Reigning champ. Really bad season. Cole,
I don't know what's going on with him. Is he like not?
I haven't been following his movement, but man,
I feel like he's checked out.
Yeah, be better, Cole. What are you doing?
He's just got the champions hangover from last year.
Too much champagne over the last season. Got in your head a little bit. Got a little bit of a big head. And then, of course, as always, and probably will remain, KJ pulling up the rear. He hasn't touched that thing since it started. I'm going to enjoy taking his money at the end of this season.
Exactly.
That does it. Yeah?
I think that's it. We got a week off until Canada, and we'll make some predictions for Canada next week.
Yeah, we'll do a pre-race Canadian Grand Prix pod. I'm excited for that one. It's going to be an 11 a.m. race, which is just beautiful. It's so nice for us. Yeah. We'll be cooking poutine and having people over. We'll be running our bets. It's going to be a fun one. Nice fast track up there in Montreal. We will see you guys for the pre-Canada Grand Prix edition. This has been Into the Chicane. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.